Let's talk about this idea. Mindset is a discipline, not a feeling, because I think it is one of the most misunderstood truths of our time. We have been taught, whether by movies or by social media or by the quick culture of instant everything, that mindset is something that arrives, that it descends on you like sunlight through a window, and either you wake up feeling motivated or you don't, and there is nothing you can do about it either way. I am here to tell you that is not true. And more than that, it is a dangerous way to live, because it hands over your power to something as unreliable as your mood. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem to move through life with a certain steadiness, a certain quiet confidence, even when things around them are falling apart. Do you think they feel motivated every single morning? Do you think they wake up every day bursting with belief and energy and clarity? They do not. What they have done is build a practice, a ritual, a way of thinking that they return to again and again, whether they feel like it or not, the same way an athlete returns to the gym on the days their body is tired and their mind is unwilling, and every excuse in the world is available to them. That is discipline. Discipline is doing the thing when the feeling is absent. Discipline is choosing gratitude on the morning you woke up angry. Discipline is choosing to believe in your own potential on the day the whole world seems to be handing you evidence to the contrary. Feelings are visitors. They come and they go. They are shaped by sleep, by weather, by what someone said to you in passing, by hormones, by hunger, by 100 things that have nothing to do with your worth or your capability. But a disciplined mindset does not ask permission from your feelings. It simply shows up. I want you to think of your mind like a garden, because I believe that image, tired as it may be, still holds truth. A garden does not tend itself. You do not wake up one day and find that the weeds have pulled themselves out and the flowers have bloomed on their own, out of nothing but good intentions. You have to kneel down in the dirt every single day. Sometimes when you are tired, sometimes when it is raining, and you have to pull what does not belong and water what you want to grow. Your mindset works exactly the same way. Every negative thought you do not challenge is a weed you allowed to stay. Every affirming belief you choose to repeat, even on the days you do not fully feel it, is a seed you are watering, whether you see the bloom yet or not. This is why I always say, do not wait to feel motivated before you act like the person you are becoming. Act first and let the feeling catch up later, because it will. Discipline creates the conditions for feeling. Feeling rarely creates the conditions for discipline. So on the mornings you doubt yourself, on the days your confidence has quietly left the room, do not wait for it to come back before you show up as your best self. Show up anyway. Choose the thought anyway. Speak the truth over your life anyway, and I promise you, the feeling will eventually follow the practice. Because that has always been the order it was meant to work in. Let's sit with this truth for a moment. Circumstances don't determine destiny. Interpretation does. Because once you understand this, you will never look at your life the same way again. We love to believe that our story is written by what happens to us. The family we were born into, the mistakes we made, the people who let us down, the doors that seemed to close before we ever got a chance to walk through them. We point to these things and we say, this is why I could not go further. This is why I did not become who I was meant to be. But I want to challenge that belief tonight, gently, but firmly, because it is simply not true. Two people can grow up in the same house, with the same amount of struggle, the same lack, the same heartbreak, and one of them will spend their whole life using that history as an explanation for everything they never became, while the other will use that very same history as the fuel for everything they are determined to become. Same house, same pain, two completely different lives. What made the difference? It was never the circumstance itself. It was the story each of them decided to tell about what that circumstance meant. This is the part we do not like to hear, because it is far easier to blame the outside world. It is easier to say, I did not get the chances others got, or I was dealt a bad hand, than it is to sit with the harder truth that what happened to you is only half the equation. The other half The half you actually have power over is what you decided it meant about you, about your worth, and about what was still possible. I have met people who went through unimaginable loss, who buried people they loved, who lost everything they built. And I watched them stand back up and say, "This is not the end of my story. This is simply a chapter I did not expect." And I have met people who experienced a fraction of that pain and let it convince them that their whole life was over, that there was no point in trying anymore. The difference was never the size of the wound. The difference was the interpretation they attached to it. Your mind is always searching for meaning. It cannot help itself. It is built that way. So when something painful happens, your mind will immediately begin writing a story about it, whether you are paying attention or not. The question is, are you the one holding the pen, or are you simply accepting whatever story your fear, or your past, or someone else's opinion has already written for you? I want you to think of a moment in your life that you have always labeled as a setback. And I want you to ask yourself, honestly, is it possible that this was not a closed door, but a redirection? Is it possible that the very thing you have grieved as an ending was actually the beginning of something you could not yet see? This is not about pretending pain did not happen or rushing past your grief. It is about refusing to let a single moment or a single circumstance become the final verdict on your entire life. Because circumstances will happen to all of us. None of us are exempt from difficulty. None of us are promised an easy road. But what you decide that difficulty means about you and about your future, that is where your real power lives. That is where your destiny is actually being written, not in what happens to you, but in what you decide to make of it. Let's talk about rejection, because I believe rejection is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. And I believe the way we interpret it determines whether it becomes the end of our story, or simply a detour on the way to where we're always meant to be. Rejection is information, not instruction. Say that to yourself whenever you need to hear it, because so many of us have gotten that backwards. We have taken a single no from a single person in a single moment, and we have treated it as a permanent command over our entire future. Think about what rejection actually is at its core. It is one person, or one room, or one moment in time, deciding that you were not the right fit for that particular opportunity at that particular time, based on whatever criteria they were using that day. That is all it is. It is not a verdict on your worth. It is not a prophecy about your future. It is not proof that you are not enough. It is simply a piece of information, and information can be studied. It can be learned from. It can even be disagreed with, but it should never be obeyed as though it were a command handed down about who you are allowed to become. I know rejection stings. I have felt it myself more times than I can count. Moments where someone looked at me and decided I was not what they were looking for, and in that moment it is so easy to let their opinion become your identity. But here is what I have learned, and I want you to hold on to this. Someone's opinion of you does not have the power to become your truth unless you hand them that power yourself. So many of the greatest stories we know of people who changed the world are actually stories built on rejection. Someone told them no more than once, sometimes more than 100 times. And instead of accepting that no as a final instruction to stop, they treated it as information that maybe this particular door was not the right one. Information that maybe they needed to adjust their approach, or find a different room, or wait for a different season, but never information that meant they should give up entirely. I want you to imagine your dreams, sitting behind 100 different doors. If one door does not open for you, does that mean none of them will? Of course not. But so many of us, the moment we hear one no, we turn around completely. We walk away from all 100 doors because we let one rejection convince us the entire hallway was closed. This is why I say, do not let rejection sit in the driver's seat of your life. Let it sit in the passenger seat if it must. Let it offer its commentary. Let it give you its information. But you are the one who decides where this journey goes next. You are the one who decides whether that no means never, or whether it simply means not yet, not this way, not with this person, not in this season. The next time you face rejection, and you will, Because rejection is simply a part of any life that dares to reach for something. I want you to ask yourself one question. What is this actually telling me? Not about my worth, but about my next move. Because rejection was never meant to instruct you to stop. It was only ever meant to inform you, so that you could adjust and rise and try again, wiser than you were before. Let's talk about the difference between what is true and what is simply familiar, because I believe this is one of the quietest traps we fall into, and most of us never even realize we are standing in it. We carry beliefs about ourselves, about what we deserve, about what is possible for our lives, and we treat those beliefs as though they were facts, carved in stone somewhere, when in reality, so many of them are not facts at all. They are simply old, they are simply repeated, they are simply familiar, and somewhere along the way, we confused familiarity for truth. Here is what I mean. If you were told over and over as a child that you were not enough, that you would not amount to much, that people like you do not get the good things in life, that belief did not become true because it was accurate. It became powerful because it was repeated. And your mind, being the remarkable thing that it is, began to treat repetition as proof. The more you heard it, the more it felt real, not because it was factual, but because it became familiar. And familiar has a way of disguising itself as truth if you never stop to examine it. This is why I want you to start asking yourself a very simple but very powerful question whenever an old belief about yourself rises up. Is this true, or is this just familiar? Because those are two very different things, and most of us have never once paused to separate them. We simply accept the belief because we have believed it for so long, and the length of time we have carried something has nothing to do with whether or not it is actually accurate. Think about the story you tell yourself about your limitations. Maybe it is, I am not the kind of person who succeeds, or relationships never work out for me, or I always self-sabotage, or it is too late for me to change. Now I want you to ask, where did that story come from? Did it come from a single hard season that you have since generalized into a permanent identity? Did it come from someone else's words, spoken carelessly years ago, that you picked up and carried as though they were your own? Did it come from watching pain repeat itself in your family and assuming that pain was now written into your blood? None of these things make a belief true. They only make it familiar. Familiar feels safe, and that is exactly why we cling to it, even when it is hurting us. There is a strange comfort in the beliefs we have held the longest, even the painful ones, because at least we know them, at least we know what to expect from them. And the unknown, even a better unknown, can feel more frightening than a painful known. But I want you to recognize that safety and truth are not the same thing. Something can feel completely safe and still be completely false. So I am asking you tonight to go back through the stories you have been telling yourself, the ones about your worth, your capability, your future, and I want you to interrogate them gently but honestly and ask, is this actually true, or have I simply repeated it so many times that it started to feel like truth? Because the moment you can separate the two, the moment you can say, this was only ever familiar, it was never actually true. That is the moment you become free to write a new story. One built not on what you have always believed, but on what is actually, honestly, possible for your life. Let's talk about this idea. You are the author, not the character, because I believe this might be the most important shift a person can ever make in how they see their own life. So many of us move through our days as though we are simply characters in a story. Someone else is writing, reacting to whatever plot twist comes our way, accepting whatever role we have been handed, as though we have no say in how the next page unfolds. But I want to tell you something tonight. You were never meant to simply live inside your story. You were meant to write it. Think about what it means to be a character in someone else's story. A character does not choose what happens to them. A character simply responds. A character can be written into hardship, into heartbreak, into failure, and there is nothing the character can do about it, because the pen is in someone else's hand. And I think so many of us have been living exactly like that, waiting to see what life will do to us next, waiting to see what other people will decide about us, waiting to see whether circumstances will finally be kind. All while forgetting that we were given a pen of our own a long time ago, and we simply stopped picking it up. Being the author means something entirely different. It means recognizing that while you did not choose every circumstance that has happened in your life, you absolutely get to choose what you do with it. It means understanding that your past, however painful, however unfair, is not the final draft. It is simply an earlier chapter. And any good writer knows that early chapters can be revised, reframed, even redeemed, once you understand the fuller story you are building toward. I want you to think about the chapters of your life that you are least proud of. The mistakes, the seasons you wasted, the relationships that fell apart because of choices you made or choices that were made against you. As a character, all you can do is carry those chapters forward exactly as they happened, powerless, resigned, convinced that is simply how the story goes. But as the author, you have a different option entirely. You get to decide what those chapters mean for everything that comes next. You get to decide whether that painful chapter becomes the reason you gave up, or the very turning point that made the rest of your story so much richer. This is not about pretending the hard chapters did not happen. A good author never aces the difficult parts of a story, because the difficult parts are usually what make the story worth telling in the first place. It is about refusing to let those chapters have the final word. It is about sitting down, maybe for the first time in your life, and saying, I did not choose everything that has happened to me, but I am choosing, from this moment forward, what happens next, and I am choosing what all of it will come to mean. So I am asking you tonight, stop waiting for someone else to determine how your story unfolds. Stop treating your circumstances, your past, or even other people's opinions of you as the final say in who you are and what you are capable of becoming. Pick the pen back up. Look at the chapter you are living in right now and ask yourself, is this the chapter I want to keep writing, or is it time to turn the page? Because you were never simply a character wandering through a story that was happening to you. You were always the author, and the next chapter, the one that has not been written yet, is still entirely, completely yours to create. So let's bring this all together tonight, because everything I have shared with you comes down to one simple truth. Your mindset is not something that happens to you. It is something you build, one choice, one thought, one decision at a time. It is a discipline, not a feeling, something you practice on the hard days just as much as the good ones. It means understanding that your circumstances were never the ones writing your destiny. Your interpretation of those circumstances was always doing that work instead. It means learning to hear rejection as information you can grow from, never as an instruction to give up. It means having the courage to ask of every limiting belief you carry, is this actually true, or have I simply repeated it so long that it started to feel that way? And above everything else, it means remembering always that you are not a character being carried along by a story someone else is writing. You are the author. You always were. So here is what I want you to do when you leave this room tonight. I want you to go home, and I want you to look at your life honestly, fully, without flinching, and I want you to ask yourself, what story have I been telling? And is it the story I actually want to keep telling? Because you get to decide that. Not your past. Not the people who doubted you. Not the rejections you have carried or the pain you did not choose. You get to decide. And the moment you truly believe that is the moment everything about your life begins to change. I have said it before, and I will say it again, because it is one of the truest things I know. You do not need new circumstances to begin building a new life. You simply need a new mind. Change your mind about what is possible, about what you deserve, about who gets to decide your worth, and I promise you, your whole life will follow. Not overnight, not without effort, but it will follow because it always does. So tonight, I am not asking you to change everything about your life all at once. I am simply asking you to pick up the pen, to take back the authorship of your own story, and to walk out of this room believing fully and completely that your mindset truly is everything, and that it can change your life forever. Thank you.